Truth, what it is not, and why humanity struggles with it. A Grail Message guided clarification for a confused age. Foreword. Truth in an age of opinion. Why humanity speaks endlessly about truth yet avoids it. Opinion, belief, and consensus mistaken for truth. The Grail Message is a standard beyond emotion, power, and culture. Never in human history has so much been said about truth, and never has truth been so rarely lived. Opinions multiply faster than insight, beliefs harden into identities, and consensus is mistaken for correctness. Humanity debates truth loudly in public spaces, on platforms, in institutions and religions, yet quietly avoids the one place where truth must first be faced, within oneself. This age is not marked by a lack of information, but by a lack of willingness. The human intellect has become skilled at argument, comparison, and defense, but weak in submission to reality. Truth is treated as something to be owned, defended, or weaponized, rather than something to which one must align one's entire being. Thus, people say, "My truth, your truth," or "our truth," as though reality were negotiable, as though creation adjusts itself to human preference. In this confusion, belief has replaced recognition. What one feels strongly is assumed to be true. What many agree upon is assumed to be right. What carries authority, religious, scientific, political, or cultural, is assumed to be unquestionable. Yet none of these produce truth. They only produce systems of thought, which may or may not align with reality. The Grail Message stands apart from this noise. It does not ask to be believed. It does not seek followers, institutions, or emotional loyalty. It offers a measuring rod, the immutable laws of creation. These laws do not change with time, culture, power, or human opinion. They work silently, precisely, and impartially, whether acknowledged or denied. Truth, in this light, is not what comforts, unites, or empowers human groups. Truth is what is. It is that which operates regardless of human preference. It can be observed through its effects, recognized through conscience, and verified through lived consequence. It does not shout. It does not coerce. It does not need defense. This foreword is not an invitation to adopt another worldview. It is a call to sobriety, to step out of emotional captivity, inherited belief, and intellectual pride. To recognize that truth cannot be voted into existence, nor preserved by tradition, nor protected by force. It can only be lived. Only the human being who becomes inwardly quiet, honest, and willing to change can approach truth. All others will talk about it endlessly, while fleeing its demands. Introduction. What people think truth is. Truth is personal belief or perspective. Truth is majority agreement or authority. My truth versus reality. Why confusion about truth leads to division, suffering, and fear. Modern humanity is surrounded by truths, yet starved of truth. Many believe truth is personal. This is true for me. Others believe truth is collective. If most people agree, it must be true. Some believe truth flows from authority, a holy book, a leader, a science, a tradition, or an institution. In each case, truth is relocated from reality itself into human constructs. This is the root of today's division. When truth becomes personal, no correction is possible. When truth becomes collective, error can dominate entire civilizations. When truth becomes authoritative, obedience replaces understanding. And when truth becomes emotional, fear and anger become its guardians. The phrase, "my truth," reveals the crisis clearly. Reality does not fragment according to personal experience. Gravity does not adjust itself to belief. Fire does not spare those who deny its nature. In the same way, the moral, spiritual, and causal laws of creation do not bend to opinion. They operate uniformly, bringing consequence, not negotiation. Confusion about truth produces suffering because it disconnects action from reality. People act according to what they believe is true, only to encounter consequences that contradict them. Instead of correcting themselves, they accuse fate, God, society, or others. Thus resentment grows, fear deepens, and violence, internal or external, becomes justified. Religions have often replaced truth with doctrine. Science has sometimes replaced truth with theory elevated beyond its scope. Philosophy has replaced truth with endless interpretation. Social movements have replaced truth with narrative. In every case, alignment with reality has been replaced by attachment to ideas. The Grail Message restores a simple but demanding clarity. Truth is that which stands in the laws of creation and proves itself through lawful effect. Truth does not require belief. It requires correspondence. Truth does not demand loyalty. It demands alignment. Truth does not fear examination. It welcomes it. To approach truth, one must be willing to lose cherished opinions, inherited identities, and comforting illusions. This is why truth is resisted. It does not flatter the intellect, reward group belonging, or protect the ego. It calls the human being to responsibility, here and now. This introduction sets the foundation for a different approach. Not debate, not persuasion, not belief, but recognition. The chapters that follow will not ask what people think is true, but what is true according to law, consequence, and lived reality. Only those willing to place their thinking, feeling, and acting under this measure will find clarity. For all others, truth will remain a word, spoken often, lived rarely. Part 1. The Great Misunderstanding of Truth. Chapter 1. What humanity calls truth. Opinion, belief, and assumption. Modern humanity speaks endlessly about truth, yet rarely pauses to ask what it truly means by the word. In everyday usage, truth has been reduced to what one thinks, feels, or prefers. Opinion is elevated to certainty, belief is mistaken for knowledge, and assumption is defended as fact. Opinion arises from limited observation filtered through personal experience. It is shaped by upbringing, environment, temperament, and circumstance. Belief, on the other hand, often rests on acceptance without personal verification. Assumption fills the gaps where neither observation nor understanding exists. Yet all three are unstable foundations. The Grail Message clarifies that truth does not originate in human thinking. Human thought can approach truth, recognize truth, or distort truth, but it cannot create it. When opinions and beliefs are mistaken for truth, confusion becomes inevitable. One opinion clashes with another, belief opposes belief, and assumption battles assumption, each claiming the same authority. Truth, however, stands above this chaos. It is not strengthened by agreement nor weakened by rejection. It remains unchanged, whether acknowledged or denied. Tradition and authority as false foundations. Another widespread misconception is the belief that truth is guaranteed by age, tradition, or authority. This is true because it has always been taught, or, this must be true because an important person said it. Such reasoning replaces inner examination with external submission. Traditions may preserve fragments of truth, but they may also preserve errors, distortions, and misunderstandings accumulated over centuries. Authority, too, may speak rightly, or wrongly. Neither tradition nor authority is a substitute for recognition. The Grail Message corrects this misplaced trust by pointing mankind back to personal responsibility before the laws of creation. No human authority stands above these laws. No tradition can suspend them. Truth does not require endorsement, it requires alignment. Where tradition is followed blindly, truth becomes buried under habit. Where authority is obeyed without understanding, truth is replaced by dependence. Emotional truth and personal preference. Perhaps the most deceptive form of false truth today is emotional truth, the belief that something is true because it feels true. Comfort, excitement, fear, or inspiration are taken as proof. Yet emotion is fluid and unstable. What feels right today may feel wrong tomorrow. Personal preference further distorts perception. People often call something true because it benefits them, confirms their self-image, or spares them discomfort. In this way, truth is unconsciously bent to serve desire. The Grail Message exposes this as a dangerous inversion. Truth does not serve man, man must serve truth. Emotional reactions may accompany recognition, but they are never the measure of truth. Only alignment with the laws of creation reveals what is real. Chapter 2. The Fragmentation of Truth. My truth, and your truth. One of the most destructive ideas of the modern age is the notion that truth is personal, my truth, versus your truth. This concept appears tolerant, but it dissolves meaning itself. If all truths are equally valid, then none is binding, and no correction is possible. The Grail message clarifies that while experiences are personal, truth is not. Each person may perceive truth differently depending on their maturity, but truth itself remains singular and objective. To replace truth with personal perspective is to mistake the map for the landscape. This fragmentation leads to spiritual isolation. Each individual becomes a closed system, answerable only to themselves. In such a state, growth halts, for growth requires correction, and correction requires a standard beyond the self. Relativism and the collapse of meaning. Relativism teaches that meaning shifts with context, culture, or preference. While this may apply to customs and conventions, it cannot apply to truth. When truth is relativized, responsibility dissolves. Right and wrong become negotiable. Cause and effect are ignored until consequences strike. The Grail message restores firmness where relativism weakens everything. The laws of creation operate with absolute precision. They do not adapt to opinions, cultures, or intentions. They work consistently, bringing consequences that reveal what is true regardless of what was believed. Meaning collapses when truth is denied. Language becomes hollow, morality becomes situational, and life becomes confusing. Humanity then wonders why anxiety, conflict, and disorder increase, without recognizing the root cause. How language has been emptied of reality. Words once carried weight, responsibility, and consequence. Today they are used carelessly, strategically, or manipulatively. Truth is spoken lightly, promised easily, and broken without remorse. The Grail message draws attention to this decay. When words are severed from inner conviction and truthful intention, they lose substance. Repeated without living content, even sacred words become empty sounds. Language should be a bridge to truth, not a mask for falsehood. Where words no longer correspond to reality, confusion spreads, and trust disintegrates. Truth then appears distant, not because it has withdrawn, but because speech no longer points toward it. Chapter 3. Religion, Philosophy, and the Loss of Truth. When teachings replace living knowledge. Religion and philosophy originally arose from encounters with truth. Over time, many have become systems of repetition rather than paths of recognition. Teachings are memorized, quoted, and defended, but no longer lived. The Grail message corrects this by emphasizing that truth must be experienced inwardly and applied outwardly. Teachings are signposts, not destinations. When they replace living knowledge, they become obstacles rather than aids. A person may know many teachings and still live contrary to truth. Knowledge without application is barren. Truth demands movement, transformation, and responsibility. Dogma versus inner conviction. Dogma claims certainty without requiring understanding. It demands acceptance but discourages examination. Inner conviction, by contrast, arises from recognition, testing, and experience in life. The Grail message does not appeal to blind belief. It appeals to sober thinking and observation of the laws at work. Where dogma binds, truth liberates. Where dogma threatens, truth clarifies. Many cling to dogma out of fear, fear of uncertainty, fear of being wrong, fear of standing alone. Yet truth cannot be inherited through fear. It must be earned through sincerity. How sacred words become dead letters. Sacred words carry power only when they are lived. When repeated mechanically, they lose vitality. When defended aggressively, they lose purity. When used for control, they lose truth entirely. The Grail message warns against confusing reverence with ritual, and faith with repetition. Words that once pointed toward light become dead letters when detached from inner striving. Truth does not dwell in formulas. It lives in alignment with the laws of creation. Sacred words regain life only when they are supported by truthful thinking, willing action, and responsible living. Closing clarification of Part 1. The great misunderstanding of truth is not ignorance alone, but misplacement, placing truth where it does not belong, and ignoring it where it stands. Truth is not opinion, not belief, not tradition, not emotion, not dogma, and not personal preference. It is law, living and active, inviting recognition and demanding responsibility. Only when these misunderstandings fall away can humanity begin to approach truth itself, not as an idea, but as a reality shaping destiny. Part 2. Truth is revealed in the Grail Message. Chapter 4. Truth exists independently of man. Truth before humanity. The Grail Message brings a decisive clarification at the very outset. Truth did not begin with humanity. It did not arise when the first human thought, spoke, worshipped, or questioned. Truth existed long before mankind appeared and will remain long after humanity has fulfilled its course. Creation itself is the expression of truth. Its order, structure, movement, and harmony testify to laws that were not devised by human intellect. These laws did not evolve through human consensus, nor were they discovered through speculation. They simply are. This corrects the deeply rooted misconception that truth progresses alongside human civilization. Humanity may progress in knowledge, technology, or organization, but truth remains constant. What changes is only mankind's capacity to recognize it. The Grail Message thus shifts the seeker's gaze away from human history and toward creation as the primary witness of truth. Truth without human approval. Another profound correction follows. Truth does not require recognition in order to be valid. It does not depend on belief, worship, or acknowledgement. Whether accepted or rejected, it works unceasingly. Many assume that truth gains strength when widely accepted and loses power when denied. This is a dangerous illusion. The laws of creation continue their exact working even when ignored, just as gravity does not suspend itself for those who deny it. The Grail Message makes clear that truth is not concerned with winning arguments or convincing masses. It acts quietly, precisely, and impartially. Human approval neither enhances nor diminishes it. This realization humbles the seeker. Truth does not stand before mankind asking to be judged. Mankind stands before truth, judged by alignment or resistance. Why truth cannot be altered? Because truth is rooted in the laws of creation, it cannot be altered, adapted, modernized, or improved upon. Any attempt to change truth results only in distortion, not evolution. Human intellect often seeks flexibility, exceptions, and loopholes. Yet truth admits none. It does not negotiate, compromise, or adjust itself to circumstance. What appears harsh is in fact mercy, for only that which is firm can be reliable. The Grail Message corrects the belief that outdated truths must be replaced. Truth does not age. Only human understanding grows old when it ceases to seek renewal through recognition. Chapter 5. Truth is the law of creation. Living laws, not abstract ideas. Truth, as revealed in the Grail Message, is not philosophical abstraction. It is living law, active at every moment, shaping existence on all levels. These laws are not concepts to be debated but forces to be experienced. They govern movement, development, interaction, and return. They operate with life, not with theory. Humanity errs when it reduces truth to intellectual systems. Laws of creation are not thought constructs, they are realities that carry effects. One does not believe in them, one encounters them through living. The Grail Message thus restores truth from the realm of speculation to the realm of experience. Order, harmony, and justice. Creation reveals unmistakable order. Nothing exists randomly. Nothing unfolds chaotically. Where humans perceive disorder, they are often witnessing the consequences of violated laws rather than their absence. Truth manifests as order, in the precise structure of existence. Harmony, in the balanced interaction of forces. Justice, in the exact correspondence between cause and effect. Justice in creation is not moral opinion, it is lawful working. Each effect corresponds exactly to its cause, without favoritism or oversight. The Grail Message corrects the belief in arbitrary reward or punishment. There is no external judge distributing outcomes. The law itself brings balance. The immutability of creation's laws. Creation's laws are immutable. They do not bend for ignorance, intention, or emotional appeal. They do not excuse because of upbringing, culture, or belief. They work uniformly. This immutability is often perceived as severity, yet it is the foundation of trust. Only because the laws do not change can development be possible. Only because they are firm can correction lead to growth. The Grail Message enlightens the seeker to recognize that safety lies not in exception, but in alignment. Chapter 6. Truth and Cause and Effect. The exactness of spiritual law. Among the most illuminating revelations of the Grail Message is the exactness of the law of cause and effect, not merely in material events, but in thoughts, intentions, and inner attitudes. Nothing is accidental, nothing is undeserved. Every experience arises from preceding causes set into motion by the human being, whether consciously or unconsciously. This law works with absolute precision. Time delay does not weaken it. Distance does not interrupt it. Ignorance does not nullify it. The Grail Message corrects the belief in chance, luck, or misfortune. These are names given to effects whose causes were not recognized. Responsibility is the core of truth. If truth is law, then responsibility is unavoidable. One cannot accept truth without accepting responsibility for one's own destiny. The Grail Message removes the comfort of blame. Society, fate, other people, and circumstances can no longer be used as final explanations. Each individual stands as a cause-setter within creation. This is not condemnation, but empowerment. Responsibility means the future is not arbitrary. What is sown today shapes what is reaped tomorrow. Truth does not enslave, it entrusts. Why no one is treated unjustly? The human cry of, "Why me?" arises from the belief that life is unfair. The Grail Message offers a sobering but liberating correction: no one is treated unjustly. Injustice would imply error within the laws of creation. Yet these laws are perfect in operation. What appears unjust is only misunderstood sequence. This does not deny suffering, it explains it. Suffering is not proof of injustice, but indication of causes seeking balance. Recognition transforms suffering into guidance. The Grail Message thus replaces despair with clarity and accusation with understanding. Closing clarification of Part 2. Truth, as revealed in the Grail Message, stands far above human invention. It is older than humanity, independent of belief, and active through immutable laws. Those who recognize this cease demanding that truth adapt to them. Instead, they begin the real task, adapting themselves to truth. In this alignment lies clarity, responsibility, and the possibility of genuine inner freedom. Part 3. Truth and the Human Being. Chapter 7. Why Truth is Feared. The Threat to Ego and Comfort. Truth is often spoken of as something noble and desirable, yet when it draws near, many instinctively withdraw. The Grail Message illuminates the reason. Truth threatens the ego and disturbs comfort. The ego thrives on self-image, justification, and control. Truth dismantles these constructions without hostility, yet without compromise. It reveals not what one wishes to be, but what one is. For the ego, this exposure feels like danger. Comfort, too, depends on avoidance. Truth demands movement, correction, and responsibility. It does not allow a person to remain unchanged once recognized. Thus, many fear truth not because it is harsh, but because it requires inner restructuring. The Grail Message clarifies that truth does not attack the human being, it attacks only illusion. What resists truth is not the real self, but the false image built around it. Self-deception and inner resistance. Self-deception is not always deliberate. Often it is a protective mechanism, shielding the individual from inner conflict. Yet what protects in the short term imprisons in the long term. The Grail Message exposes self-deception as the primary barrier to truth. A person may claim sincerity while unconsciously avoiding recognition. One may speak of truth while carefully steering away from its implications. Inner resistance manifests subtly. Rationalizing behavior. Shifting blame. Selective acceptance of insight. Avoidance of silence and reflection. Truth does not force entry. It waits. Resistance therefore becomes a choice, whether conscious or not. The price of remaining untruthful. While truth carries a price, remaining untruthful carries a far greater one. Inner division arises when thought, word, and action diverge. This division weakens clarity, drains vitality, and erodes peace. The Grail Message reveals that prolonged untruthfulness leads to stagnation. Growth ceases, and life begins to feel heavy and confusing. Suffering increases, not as punishment, but as lawful consequence. What is avoided internally must eventually confront the human being externally. Thus, the fear of truth delays discomfort, but guarantees deeper conflict later. Chapter 8. the human intellect and its limits. Thinking versus knowing. Humanity often equates thinking with knowing. Yet the Grail message draws a vital distinction. Thinking arranges information, knowing arises from recognition. Thinking operates through comparison, memory, and logic. Knowing arises when truth is inwardly grasped and confirmed through life. One may think about truth endlessly and still not know it. This clarification corrects the overvaluation of intellectual activity. Thought is indispensable, yet insufficient. Truth lies beyond speculation. It requires observation, sincerity, and lived experience. Intellect is tool, not master. The intellect is a remarkable instrument, designed to serve the human being. Problems arise when the tool assumes mastery. When intellect dominates, everything is filtered through advantage, strategy, and self-interest. Truth is then evaluated by usefulness rather than correctness. What cannot be explained, controlled, or categorized is dismissed. The Grail message restores proper order by placing intellect in service to higher perception. Used rightly, intellect clarifies recognition. Used wrongly, it blocks it. Intellect should ask, is this true? Not, how can this serve me? When cleverness becomes obstruction. Cleverness often masquerades as insight. It allows a person to appear knowledgeable while avoiding inner change. Arguments replace recognition, and explanation replaces transformation. The Grail message warns that cleverness can be more dangerous than ignorance. Ignorance may seek, cleverness often defends itself. Truth is simple, but not simplistic. Cleverness complicates what is clear, introducing endless distinctions that obscure responsibility. Where cleverness rules, humility fades, and without humility, truth cannot be received. Chapter 9. Inner Honesty, the Gateway to Truth. Truth begins within. Truth cannot be approached externally alone. It begins with inner alignment. The Grail message emphasizes that one must be truthful with oneself before one can recognize truth outside. Inner honesty requires attentiveness to one's motives, reactions, and intentions. It asks not, how do I appear? But, what truly moves me? Without this inward clarity, external truth remains distant, even when spoken plainly. Recognizing one's own errors. Recognition of error is not weakness, it is strength. The Grail message corrects the fear surrounding error by showing it as an invitation to growth. Those who cling to being right close themselves to learning. Those who admit error open the way for correction. Error recognized loses its power to harm. Truth does not condemn mistakes. It condemns only refusal to recognize them. The courage to let falsehood fall. Letting falsehood fall is one of the most demanding acts a human being can perform. It may involve relinquishing cherished beliefs, admired identities, or familiar explanations. The Grail message makes clear that this courage is rewarded with lightness. What falls away was never real strength. Truth does not impoverish, it frees. When falsehood falls, clarity rises. When illusion dissolves, peace enters. What remains is quieter, simpler, and more resilient. Closing clarification of Part 3. Truth does not distance itself from the human being. It is the human being who distances themselves from truth, through fear, intellect unchecked, and avoidance of inner honesty. Yet the way back is always open. It begins not with grand declarations, but with quiet sincerity. Where inner honesty lives, truth draws near naturally. And where truth is allowed to stand, the human being finds not loss, but grounding. Part 4. Word, Speech, and Responsibility. Chapter 10. Words are not truth. Language is signpost, not reality. Human language was given as a tool for communication, not as a substitute for reality. The Grail message makes a decisive clarification. Words are signposts pointing toward truth, not truth itself. A signpost is not the destination. Confusion arises when people cling to words instead of following where they point. Definitions, formulas, and explanations may guide the intellect, but they cannot replace recognition. Truth exists independently of how it is named or described. A word may be accurate today and misleading tomorrow if its living meaning is lost. When language is treated as reality, thought becomes trapped in forms, and the living essence of truth is overlooked. The danger of quoting without living. One of the most subtle dangers addressed in the Grail Message is the habit of quoting truth without living it. Words that once arose from recognition are repeated mechanically, detached from inner conviction. Quoting creates the illusion of understanding. A person may speak fluently about truth while remaining inwardly unchanged. In such cases, words become a shield against self-examination rather than a bridge to recognition. The Grail Message corrects this tendency by demanding congruence. Truth must pass through life, not merely through speech. Where words are not supported by action, they lose credibility and weight. How words can conceal falsehood. Words can illuminate, but they can also conceal. Eloquence may hide emptiness. Complexity may mask avoidance. Spiritual language may be used to appear elevated while escaping responsibility. The Grail Message exposes this misuse. When words are used to impress, dominate, or excuse, they separate the speaker from truth. The listener may be misled, but the speaker binds themselves to falsehood. Truth requires simplicity. Where speech becomes elaborate without necessity, it often signals distance from inner clarity. Chapter 11. The Creative Power of the Human Word. Speaking in alignment with truth. The human word is not neutral. It carries force. The Grail Message reveals that speech sets effects into motion, shaping both inner and outer reality. When words align with truth, they strengthen clarity, build trust, and support harmony. When they contradict truth, they introduce disorder, confusion, and inner conflict. Speaking truthfully does not mean speaking harshly. It means speaking responsibly, with awareness of consequence. Every word should be weighed against its alignment with reality and law. How false speech harms the speaker first. False speech harms the speaker before it harms anyone else. This harm may not be immediate or visible, but it is lawful and exact. When a person speaks contrary to what they know inwardly to be true, inner division arises. Thought, feeling, and word fall out of alignment. Over time, this weakens clarity, dulls conscience, and erodes inner stability. The Grail Message corrects the belief that lies are harmless if unnoticed. Nothing is unnoticed within the laws of creation. The speaker is the first recipient of the effects they set into motion. Responsibility for every spoken word. Responsibility does not begin with action alone, it begins with speech. Words carry intention, and intention carries effect. The Grail Message emphasizes that no word is insignificant. Casual speech, jokes, promises, and repeated phrases all shape inner atmosphere and outer consequence. This does not mean fear of speaking, but awareness. Responsible speech is calm, measured, and purposeful. It avoids exaggeration, manipulation, and unnecessary negativity. Where responsibility governs speech, trust naturally follows. Chapter 12. Silence and Truth. When silence is more truthful than speech. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness or avoidance. In truth, silence can be an expression of strength and clarity. The Grail Message reveals that silence is truthful when speech would distort, exaggerate, or mislead. Not everything recognized must be spoken. Not every insight must be shared. Silence allows truth to mature inwardly. It protects clarity from dilution and prevents premature expression. The misuse of spiritual talk. Spiritual talk, when excessive or ill-timed, can hinder rather than help. Speaking continually about spiritual matters without corresponding inner development creates imbalance. The Grail Message warns against using spiritual language as decoration. Words spoken without inner depth become noise, not guidance. True spirituality expresses itself through being, not through constant explanation. Where inner order exists, speech becomes naturally restrained and purposeful. Listening is a path to recognition. Listening is an active state, not a passive one. It requires openness, patience, and humility. The Grail Message places listening above speaking in the path to truth. Through listening, both inwardly and outwardly, one learns to perceive reality without immediate reaction or judgment. In silence, truth speaks more clearly. In listening, recognition deepens. Many fail to find truth not because it is hidden, but because they speak too much to hear it. Closing clarification of Part 4. Words shape reality, but they are not reality. Speech carries power, but only when aligned with truth. Silence is not emptiness, but space for recognition. The Grail Message calls the human being to responsible speech, conscious silence, and attentive listening. Where these are practiced, truth finds fertile ground to take root. Part 5. Truth is Light. Chapter 13. Truth Reveals. Illumination of Inner States. Truth, in the Grail Message, is repeatedly described as light, not as metaphor alone, but as a real, active force. Light reveals what already exists, it does not create it. In the same way, truth does not invent inner states within the human being, it illuminates them. When truth approaches a person, inner conditions that were previously unnoticed come into awareness. Motives, tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses become visible. This illumination is often unsettling, because it removes the comfort of vagueness. The Grail Message clarifies that discomfort arises not from truth itself, but from what truth reveals. Where inner order exists, illumination brings peace. Where disorder exists, illumination brings tension, yet this tension is the first step toward correction. Exposure of motives and intentions. Human actions are rarely as simple as they appear. Beneath visible behavior lie motives and intentions that shape outcomes. Truth penetrates beyond appearances and exposes these inner drivers. Many believe that good intentions excuse harmful effects. The Grail Message corrects this misconception by showing that intentions themselves must be examined. Self-interest disguised as goodwill, fear disguised as caution, or pride disguised as conviction cannot remain hidden under the light of truth. This exposure is not condemnation. It is guidance. By revealing what truly moves a person, truth offers the opportunity for realignment and growth. Why nothing hidden can remain hidden. The idea that one can permanently hide inner states is an illusion sustained only in darkness. Truth, as light, dissolves concealment over time. The Grail Message emphasizes that nothing hidden escapes the working of the laws of creation. Thoughts, intentions, and desires set effects into motion, whether acknowledged or not. These effects return as experiences that mirror the inner state that produced them. Thus, what is hidden eventually becomes visible, either through recognition or through consequence. Light does not seek exposure for its own sake, exposure is simply the natural result of illumination. Chapter 14. Truth Separates. The separation of genuine and false. Light does more than reveal, it separates. Where truth shines, the genuine is distinguished from the false. This separation occurs quietly, without argument or force. The Grail Message shows that confusion thrives only where light is absent or resisted. When truth is allowed to act, contradictions dissolve. What is built on false assumptions weakens and falls away, while what is genuine gains firmness. This separation is often misinterpreted as division. In reality, it is clarification. Only what is unclear appears unified with what contradicts it. Why confusion cannot last forever. Confusion is not a permanent state. It exists only as long as truth is avoided or distorted. Once light is present, confusion loses its foundation. The Grail Message corrects the belief that chaos is inevitable. Chaos arises when laws are ignored. Order reasserts itself when laws are recognized. Even when confusion appears widespread, it is temporary. Light works persistently, bringing clarity in its own time. Resistance may delay recognition, but it cannot prevent it. The sorting power of light. Light sorts without judgment. It does not label, it reveals. Each thing stands where it belongs once illumination is present. The Grail Message explains that this sorting occurs both inwardly and outwardly. Inner clarity leads to external alignment. Relationships, pursuits, and values rearrange themselves according to truth. What no longer belongs falls away naturally. What aligns remains and strengthens. This process may feel like loss at first, but it is in fact liberation from mixture. Chapter 15. Truth Purifies. Pain is a cleansing process. Purification is often misunderstood as punishment. The Grail Message corrects this by showing purification as restoration of balance. When truth illuminates inner disorder, tension arises. This tension is experienced as pain, not to harm, but to cleanse. Just as physical healing may involve discomfort, spiritual purification involves confronting what is misaligned. Pain signals resistance to correction. When resistance yields, pain diminishes. Thus, pain becomes a guide rather than an enemy. Correction through consequences. Truth corrects not through threat, but through consequence. Consequences are the lawful responses of creation to causes set into motion. The Grail Message reveals that consequences are precise teachers. They mirror inner states and actions with clarity that words often cannot provide. Correction through consequence is impartial and purposeful. It does not aim to break the human being, but to redirect them toward alignment. When recognized early, correction is gentle. When resisted, it intensifies, not in cruelty, but in fidelity to law. Growth through recognition. Recognition transforms purification into growth. When a person understands why an experience occurred, resistance falls away, and learning takes place. The Grail Message emphasizes that growth is not achieved through suffering alone, but through recognition within experience. Without recognition, pain repeats. With recognition, it fulfills its purpose and dissolves. Truth purifies by restoring clarity, strengthening responsibility, and deepening humility. What remains after purification is simpler, steadier, and closer to reality. Closing clarification of Part 5. Truth, as light, reveals, separates, and purifies. These processes are not destructive, though they may feel challenging. They remove what is false so that what is genuine may stand free. Those who welcome light experience relief. Those who resist experience strain. Yet the light continues to shine, unchanged, impartial, and faithful. In allowing truth to work, the human being does not lose themselves, they find what is real. Part 6. Modern Humanity in the Light of Truth. Chapter 16. The Age of Confusion. Progress without inner maturity. Humanity today prides itself on progress, technological, scientific, and material. Yet the Grail Message reveals a critical imbalance. Outer progress has far outpaced inner maturity. Advancements in knowledge, communication, and production are impressive. But without the corresponding development of discernment, humility, and responsibility, such progress becomes fragile and dangerous. Society may create tools of great power while its moral and spiritual framework remains underdeveloped. The Grail Message clarifies that progress without inner maturity is like building a grand structure on unstable soil. Success appears, yet it is vulnerable to collapse. True development requires alignment of the intellect, heart, and conscience with the laws of creation. Knowledge without wisdom. Humanity collects vast knowledge, yet often fails to convert it into wisdom. Knowledge alone is inert. Wisdom requires recognition of cause and effect, law, and consequence. The Grail Message emphasizes that wisdom arises from sober thinking, inner honesty, and recognition of truth in action. Without this, knowledge may mislead, creating clever solutions that harm, or solutions that satisfy immediate desire but violate natural law. Modern society mistakes accumulation of information for mastery. Yet wisdom, the application of knowledge in alignment with truth, is the essential measure of growth. Freedom without responsibility. Humanity celebrates freedom, yet often divorces it from responsibility. Choices are made without regard for consequence. Rights are claimed without acknowledgement of duty. The Grail Message corrects this imbalance. Freedom is meaningful only when accompanied by awareness of the effects each action, thought, and word produces. Without responsibility, freedom degenerates into chaos. Laws may be ignored, relationships destabilized, and inner peace forfeited. True freedom exists only within alignment to truth, where choice is exercised consciously and deliberately. Chapter 17. The Worship of Comfort. Convenience is a false god. Modern humanity places comfort and convenience above all else. The Grail Message exposes this tendency as worship of a false god. Convenience becomes the measure of good, comfort the measure of success, and ease the measure of value. This worship blinds people to truth. The path of least resistance replaces responsibility. Difficult decisions are avoided. Effort required for recognition or correction is shunned. Humanity prefers illusions that feel good to reality that challenges. The Grail Message corrects this error, reminding seekers that comfort is transient, and that inner strength, clarity, and alignment are built only through facing what is necessary. Avoidance of consequences. The fear of discomfort leads to avoidance of consequences. Humanity attempts to bypass lessons by hiding from the effects of its actions, financial, emotional, or spiritual. The Grail message emphasizes that laws of creation cannot be circumvented. Attempts to evade consequences may postpone recognition, but the effects remain exact and unavoidable. Avoidance increases suffering rather than preventing it. Recognition of consequences is not punishment, it is the instrument through which truth guides development. The fear of discipline and order. Discipline and order are often resisted because they impose structure, demand effort, and highlight personal shortcomings. Yet the Grail message clarifies that discipline is not restriction but alignment. Fear of discipline reflects fear of truth itself. Without order, human action becomes inconsistent. Without self-discipline, inner clarity is weakened. Civilization may flourish temporarily in material terms, yet inner chaos grows unchecked. The Grail message calls humanity to embrace order and self-discipline as allies, not enemies, in the pursuit of freedom and recognition. Chapter 18. Why Suffering Increases. Resistance to truth is root cause. Suffering is not random. The Grail message exposes its root cause, resistance to truth. Every pain, setback, or crisis originates from divergence between inner alignment and the laws of creation. Modern humanity often blames external forces, society, fate, or misfortune, for suffering. Yet the law works impartially. When actions, thoughts, and intentions conflict with truth, suffering naturally arises to expose error. Recognition of this principle empowers the seeker. Suffering ceases to be meaningless torment, it becomes a mirror revealing what must be corrected. How humanity creates its own crises. Crises, personal, societal, and global, are frequently self-created. Ignorance of law, avoidance of responsibility, and indulgence in comfort produce effects that later manifest as hardship. The Grail message corrects the misconception that humanity is merely a passive victim of circumstance. Each crisis is an opportunity for recognition, reflection, and realignment. The sooner it is recognized, the lighter its burden. By understanding this, humanity begins to see that prevention lies in inner recognition and conscientious living, not in external manipulation or avoidance. The law working despite denial. Even when humanity denies truth, evades recognition, or mocks responsibility, the laws of creation continue to operate with exactness. Denial does not suspend consequences, avoidance does not nullify effects. The Grail message illuminates this unchanging principle. The law is impartial, consistent, and faithful. What humans resist today, they will encounter tomorrow, sometimes with greater intensity. This is not vengeance, but certainty. Recognition today prevents suffering tomorrow. Truth does not punish, it works. Closing clarification of Part 6. Modern humanity experiences unprecedented progress alongside unprecedented confusion. Comfort is worshipped, knowledge is misapplied, and freedom is divorced from responsibility. As a result, suffering increases, not randomly, but as the exact reflection of resistance to truth. The Grail message exhorts humanity to awaken, to embrace recognition, discipline, and responsibility, and to align with the laws of creation. Only in this alignment does progress become sustainable, knowledge become wisdom, and freedom become real. Part 7. The Seeker of Truth. Chapter 19. Who can find truth? Earnestness versus curiosity. The Grail message teaches that not every seeker reaches truth. Many approach with curiosity alone, an intellectual interest or fleeting fascination, yet curiosity without earnestness leads only to partial understanding or temporary insight. Earnestness is a quality of seriousness, sincerity, and committed pursuit. It is the inner alignment of intention with desire for genuine recognition. Those who approach truth with earnestness accept the possibility of inner transformation, the necessity of correction, and the responsibility of alignment. Curiosity may delight in novelty, but earnestness listens, observes, and integrates. The Grail message clarifies that curiosity without earnestness may wander among teachings without ever recognizing the living law behind them. Humility is prerequisite. Humility is the key that opens the door to truth. Without humility, the human being is blinded by pride, preconception, and self-importance. The Grail message emphasizes that the ego must step aside if recognition is to occur. Humility does not mean self-denial or abasement. It is the readiness to accept one's limitations, to admit error, and to follow truth rather than personal desire. Only the humble can receive correction without resistance, and only the humble can allow light to illuminate what is hidden. Why not all are ready? Many long for truth, yet few are prepared. The Grail Message explains that readiness is a combination of inner disposition, life experience, and conscious choice. A seeker must possess earnestness, humility, and courage. Those unprepared may reject truth, distort it, or use it for self-aggrandizement. Readiness does not depend on education, position, or intellect. It depends on inner openness and willingness to align with the laws of creation. Truth waits for the ready, it does not chase the unready. This ensures that recognition is fruitful and not wasted in misunderstanding. Chapter 20. Sober Thinking. Clear observation without emotion. Sober thinking is essential for recognition. The Grail Message defines it as observation and assessment free from emotional distortion. Human emotions, desire, fear, or excitement, can cloud judgment and hide cause and effect. Sober thinking allows the seeker to see events, motives, and consequences clearly. It separates what is real from what is imagined or assumed. Only through this clarity can truth be recognized and applied. Freedom from blind belief. Belief without examination can never lead to genuine recognition. The Grail Message corrects the human tendency to adopt teachings or traditions blindly. Blind belief, however sincere, does not constitute understanding. Sober thinking requires the seeker to question, verify, and observe. Acceptance occurs only when recognition arises naturally. This ensures that alignment with truth is real, not imposed. Learning to see rather than assume. Assumption is the human shortcut that bypasses recognition. The Grail Message warns against the habit of assuming what is true based on appearances, convenience, or habit. True seeing requires attention, reflection, and patience. It requires observing the inner and outer consequences of action, intention, and thought. When a seeker learns to see rather than assume, recognition becomes precise, stable, and enduring. Chapter 21. Reverence for Creation. Recognizing order and purpose. A seeker of truth does not approach reality lightly. The Grail Message teaches that creation is ordered, purposeful, and lawful. Recognizing this order is not intellectual admiration alone, it is an inner acknowledgement of the precise working of the laws of creation. Where order is recognized, one understands that nothing occurs randomly. Life, with all its challenges and structure, operates according to law. Reverence arises naturally from recognition of this precision. Gratitude is alignment. Gratitude is more than politeness, it is a conscious acknowledgement of the harmonious working of truth. The Grail Message shows that gratitude aligns the human being with law, strengthens inner openness, and deepens recognition. A seeker who is grateful for guidance, experiences, and even correction opens their perception. Gratitude acts as a bridge between human awareness and the unchanging order of creation. Living in respect of law. Reverence manifests in life through respect for law, physical, moral, and spiritual. This respect is not fear-driven, but recognition-driven. It requires careful attention to cause and effect, responsibility for thoughts and actions, and conscious alignment with the laws of creation. Living in respect of law protects the seeker from self-inflicted confusion and suffering. It cultivates stability, inner peace, and the capacity to receive truth without distortion. Closing clarification of Part 7. The seeker of truth is distinguished not by curiosity, education, or outward devotion, but by earnestness, humility, sober thinking, and reverence for creation. Only those who cultivate these qualities can approach truth successfully, allowing light to illuminate, guide, and transform. The Grail Message positions these qualities as prerequisites for recognition, ensuring that humanity's engagement with truth is conscious, responsible, and fruitful. Part 8. Breaking Free from Misconceptions. Chapter 22. Religious Misconceptions. Fear-based faith. The Grail Message illuminates a widespread error, faith grounded in fear. Many adhere to religious systems out of dread of punishment, eternal suffering, or societal judgment. Such faith is reactive, not receptive. It binds rather than liberates. Fear-based faith does not cultivate recognition of truth. It fosters obedience without understanding and devotion without inner conviction. The Grail Message clarifies that fear cannot guide toward genuine truth, because it prioritizes self-protection over alignment with law and lawfulness. True spiritual seeking arises from understanding, not fear. It flows from recognition of the laws of creation and the desire to live in harmony with them. Blind submission versus inner conviction. Blind submission substitutes ritual and repetition for recognition. Humanity has long believed that adherence to sacred formulas alone confers alignment with the divine. The Grail Message corrects this misconception. Words, rituals, and authority are insufficient without inner conviction. Recognition must arise within, based on direct observation, reflection, and alignment with law. Without this, the human being remains untransformed despite outward appearances of piety. True submission is voluntary, conscious, and rooted in understanding, not imposed, coerced, or habitual. Restoring purity to spiritual seeking. Spiritual seeking becomes pure when it focuses on clarity, alignment, and recognition rather than conformity or approval. The Grail Message encourages the seeker to evaluate teachings not by popularity or tradition, but by their ability to illuminate law, responsibility, and truth. Purity is restored when devotion is guided by inner recognition rather than external compulsion. Where purity exists, fear dissipates, and the human being can meet truth openly, honestly, and courageously. Chapter 23: Moral and Social Misconceptions. Human laws versus divine law. Human societies often create laws and norms that conflict with the immutable laws of creation. The Grail Message clarifies the distinction between human law, which may be arbitrary or expedient, and divine law, which is exact and eternal. Following human law without discernment can lead to inner conflict and alignment with falsehood. Divine law, in contrast, guarantees order and justice. Recognition of this distinction is crucial for breaking free from social misconceptions. When society normalizes falsehood. Societies may normalize deception, indulgence, or misaligned behavior, presenting them as acceptable or even virtuous. The Grail Message warns that conformity to such norms reinforces untruth. The human being faces a choice: accept social approval or adhere to recognition of truth. Breaking free from social misconceptions requires courage, discernment, and willingness to stand apart from the crowd. Standing alone in truth. Standing alone in truth is often necessary, because recognition does not depend on consensus. The Grail Message emphasizes that alignment with law and truthfulness cannot be delegated to majority opinion. The isolated seeker may face resistance, ridicule, or incomprehension. Yet this is the price of clarity and freedom. Truth is not compromised for comfort, popularity, or ease. Chapter 24: Personal Illusions. Self-image and false identity. Each human being carries illusions of self, constructed identities shaped by desire, pride, or fear. The Grail Message exposes these false identities as barriers to recognition. A carefully crafted self-image may feel safe, but it separates the individual from reality. Truth acts as light, gradually revealing inconsistencies between perception and reality. The seeker must learn to let these illusions fall, accepting the self as it truly is, not as imagined. Justifications and excuses. Justifications and excuses mask inner truth. The Grail Message shows that they delay recognition, distort responsibility, and perpetuate suffering. Excuses may protect pride temporarily but create inner division. Recognition begins when the human being stops rationalizing and accepts their role in each effect they encounter. Truth does not condemn, it clarifies and restores alignment. The painful joy of self-recognition. Recognition of personal illusion is both painful and joyful. Pain arises from confronting error, limitations, and falsehood. Joy arises from release, the clearing of illusions that obstruct freedom, clarity, and inner peace. The Grail Message emphasizes that self-recognition is a gateway to transformation. What is seen clearly can be corrected. What is acknowledged can be aligned. In this process, inner light expands, guiding the seeker to more profound understanding of truth and law. Closing clarification of Part 8. Breaking free from misconceptions is an essential stage in spiritual development. Misconceptions in religion, society, and self obscure the laws of creation and distort recognition. The Grail Message provides the path: earnest seeking, inner reflection, sober thinking, and courage to confront illusion. Where misconceptions are discarded, Truth is allowed to shine fully, revealing order, responsibility, and the pathway to conscious alignment with the divine. Part 9. Living in Truth. Chapter 25. Truth in Daily Life. Thought, word, and deed in unity. The Grail Message emphasizes that living in truth requires the alignment of thought, word, and deed. Discrepancy among these elements generates inner conflict, confusion, and vulnerability to error. True living demands consistency. What one thinks, what one speaks, and what one acts must all reflect recognition of law and truth. Daily life offers continuous opportunities to exercise this unity. Decisions, interactions, and reflections serve as mirrors. Misalignment manifests as tension, mistakes, or unexpected effects. Recognition and correction restore harmony, strengthening the human being's capacity to act consciously. Truth in daily life is not grandiose, it resides in the small, consistent acts of integrity, attentiveness, and conscious choice. Decision-making in alignment with law. Every decision carries consequences. The Grail Message shows that decisions made without consideration of natural law or spiritual law inevitably produce suffering. Alignment requires sober thinking, recognition of cause and effect, and humility. A person living in truth considers: will this action create imbalance or disorder? Does it respect the rights, needs, and inner development of others? Does it align with eternal laws, or only temporary convenience? By making choices through this lens, life becomes orderly, purposeful, and harmonious. Decision-making ceases to be reactive and becomes creative and responsible. Simplicity is a sign of truth. Simplicity is a natural companion of truth. Complication often arises from ego, pretense, or fear. The Grail Message clarifies that when thought, word, and deed are aligned, life need not be cluttered or convoluted. Simplicity does not imply poverty of insight or ambition. Rather, it reflects clarity and strength, revealing the directness of recognition. A simple life, guided by truth, minimizes error, reduces inner conflict, and strengthens the capacity for consistent alignment with law. Chapter 26. Truth in Relationships. Mutual respect and responsibility. Relationships are a fertile ground for practicing truth. The Grail Message underscores that genuine connection requires mutual respect and shared responsibility. One must recognize the autonomy, dignity, and inner lawfulness of others while maintaining personal alignment with truth. Respect does not mean indulgence, and responsibility does not mean control. Together, they form a balanced framework where interactions promote growth, clarity, and harmony. Giving and receiving in balance. True relational alignment requires equilibrium in giving and receiving. Overextension or excessive dependence distorts relationships. The Grail Message teaches that exchanges must be conscious, equal, and respectful, reflecting the balance inherent in natural law. Giving without recognition or receiving without discernment produces confusion, frustration, and loss of inner harmony. When both parties act consciously, relationships reflect the order, justice, and reciprocity fundamental to creation. Why truth strengthens, not destroys. Truth is often feared in relationships because it is believed to challenge, confront, or disrupt. The Grail Message corrects this misunderstanding. Truth strengthens bonds, while falsehood, concealment, and pretense erode them. Alignment with truth fosters trust, predictability, and cooperation. Even when correction is needed, truth spoken and lived constructively promotes growth. Conversely, avoidance, deception, and compromise with error weaken both the individual and the relationship. Chapter 27. Truth and Destiny. How Fate is Formed. The Grail Message reveals that human destiny is not random. It is shaped by the alignment or misalignment of thought, word, and action with the laws of creation. Each cause set into motion produces effect. Every choice contributes to the trajectory of life. Fate is not fixed, but it is the lawful result of prior actions. Understanding this allows the seeker to recognize responsibility and to actively participate in shaping the path forward. Changing one's path through recognition. Recognition is the lever by which destiny can be adjusted. By acknowledging misalignment, correcting thought and action, and living in accordance with law, the human being alters their path consciously. The Grail Message emphasizes that change is always possible. Past effects remain for learning, but the future is shaped by recognition, clarity, and conscious adherence to truth. Cooperation with the laws of creation. Destiny unfolds most harmoniously when the human being cooperates with law rather than resisting it. This cooperation requires attentiveness, humility, and courage. Recognition of law, acceptance of responsibility, and faithful alignment allow the individual to participate creatively in life's unfolding. The Grail Message shows that cooperation with law brings freedom, strength, and inner peace. Resistance produces struggle, conflict, and unnecessary suffering. Living in alignment with truth is therefore the most effective way to fulfill human potential. Closing clarification of Part 9. Living in truth is both practical and spiritual. It integrates thought, word, and action, aligns relationships with respect, responsibility, and reciprocity, and recognizes the lawful formation of destiny. The Grail Message illuminates these principles not as abstract ideals but as daily, living guidelines for conscious, responsible, and harmonious existence. Where truth governs daily life, relationships, and destiny, confusion diminishes, suffering is mitigated, and the human being stands fully empowered within the immutable order of creation. Part 10. Truth is Deliverance. Chapter 28. Freedom through Truth. Liberation from fear and confusion. The Grail Message teaches that truth is the ultimate liberator. Fear and confusion persist wherever error, misconception, or concealment remain. Recognition of truth illuminates reality as it is, dissolving uncertainty and dispelling falsehood. Liberation is not granted externally, it is realized internally through clarity and sober recognition. By seeing cause and effect, understanding law, and embracing responsibility, the human being frees themselves from cycles of misunderstanding and misjudgment. Fear arises from ignorance and attachment to illusion. Confusion thrives where light is resisted. When truth is acknowledged and applied, both fear and confusion lose their hold. Inner peace through order. Order is the natural expression of alignment with truth. The Grail Message emphasizes that inner peace is inseparable from recognition of law. Where the human being aligns thought, word, and deed with natural and spiritual law, the mind becomes calm, the conscience unburdened, and the heart steady. Peace is not a temporary feeling but a state born of structural harmony within oneself. The seeker learns to act without compulsion, to think without distortion, and to respond without internal conflict. Strength born of clarity. Clarity brings strength. Where confusion and doubt previously sapped energy, recognition restores power. The Grail Message highlights that true strength is not aggression or force, but the capacity to act decisively, responsibly, and harmoniously within the framework of law. This strength is both stabilizing and creative. It enables the human being to face challenges, uphold recognition, and navigate life without being misled by illusion, emotional upheaval, or external pressure. Chapter 29. The Consequences of Rejecting Truth. Self-chosen darkness. To reject truth is to choose darkness. The Grail Message explains that ignorance is not passive, it is the result of active resistance to recognition. By avoiding lawfulness, concealing error, or clinging to misconception, the human being confines themselves within self-imposed limitation. This darkness is not punishment, it is the natural consequence of misalignment. Freedom and light are available, yet the human being denies themselves access by refusing to recognize law and truth. Spiritual stagnation. Resistance to truth produces spiritual stagnation. Without recognition, inner faculties cannot develop fully. The Grail Message shows that intellect, conscience, and perception remain constrained when the human being operates in contradiction to law. Stagnation may appear comfortable at first, because it preserves habit and illusion. Yet over time, the lack of recognition leads to inner tension, confusion, and vulnerability to error. Spiritual growth requires conscious engagement with truth, not passive existence. Inevitable lawful repercussions. The laws of creation are precise and impartial. The Grail Message clarifies that rejecting truth does not halt law, it ensures lawful repercussions. Actions, thoughts, and intentions that diverge from law produce predictable consequences. These repercussions are not vengeance, they are natural mirrors of cause and effect. Ignoring them increases intensity, delays learning, and reinforces suffering. Recognition and alignment prevent unnecessary hardship and accelerate growth. Chapter 30. Standing in Truth. Quiet Strength. Standing in truth requires inner fortitude, yet it manifests quietly. The Grail message emphasizes that recognition does not seek attention or acclaim. Strength derived from truth is calm, measured, and unwavering. Those who stand in truth do so without agitation, self-justification, or the need to prove themselves. Their actions flow from recognition, not ego. Quiet strength resists manipulation, influence, and confusion because it is rooted in lawfulness and clarity. No need for defense. When aligned with truth, the human being does not require defense of words, beliefs, or actions. The Grail message teaches that living in recognition naturally protects and validates itself. Argument, persuasion, or aggression becomes unnecessary. Defense is only needed where recognition is lacking, where uncertainty dominates, or where inner conflict persists. Alignment with truth eliminates these needs, producing stability and confidence. Trust in the working of the laws. Trust is the natural outcome of standing in truth. The Grail message assures the seeker that the laws of creation operate unfailingly, whether acknowledged or resisted. By cooperating with law, the human being need not force outcomes or manipulate circumstances. This trust is not passive, it is a conscious surrender to lawfulness coupled with personal responsibility. Actions are deliberate, recognition is awake, and consequences are accepted. Life unfolds in cooperation with order, not in struggle against it. Closing clarification of Part 10. Truth delivers the human being from fear, confusion, and error. It provides freedom, inner peace, and strength. To reject truth is to remain in darkness, stagnation, and lawful consequence. To stand in truth is to embody quiet power, act responsibly, and trust in the eternal order of creation. The Grail message presents truth not as abstract knowledge, but as practical, living light, capable of guiding humanity to liberation, clarity, and alignment with law. Conclusion. Truth remains. The Grail message affirms that truth is eternal, immutable, and independent of human perception. Humanity may misunderstand it, distort it, or resist it, yet truth remains unaltered. It is not subject to opinion, fashion, or consensus. Truth is the fixed light that illuminates all realities, the standard by which recognition and alignment are measured. What is false may appear dominant for a time, yet it cannot endure against the permanence of truth. Recognition of this constancy provides guidance, reassurance, and an anchor for human development. Humanity's choice. The human being is endowed with the capacity to choose recognition or rejection of truth. The Grail message clarifies that this choice is neither random nor meaningless. Every thought, word, and action contributes to alignment or misalignment with law. Choice is exercised moment by moment. Through conscious recognition, the seeker cooperates with creation, experiences order, and cultivates freedom. Through avoidance or denial, confusion and suffering arise naturally. Yet at every stage, the path to truth remains open, awaiting readiness and earnestness. The path still open. No error is final. No ignorance is absolute. The Grail message reminds humanity that recognition may arise at any time, and the laws of creation always offer opportunity for alignment. The human being is never beyond the reach of correction, guidance, or illumination. What has been overlooked, misunderstood, or avoided can still be seen, understood, and corrected. The path remains accessible to those who prepare themselves through humility, sober thinking, and reverence for law. Truth is constant, but the human heart must be prepared to receive it. The light is ever present, the seeker must only be ready to open their perception. Epilogue. A final call to earnest seekers. To all who read, reflect, and earnestly seek, the Grail message issues a call. Approach recognition with humility. Pursue truth with sober attention. Stand courageously in the face of correction. This is not a call for curiosity, convenience, or superficial belief. It is a call to earnestness, discipline, and living alignment. Those who answer this call will find that the difficulties of life become teachers, mistakes become guides, and challenges become opportunities for growth. Truth is the measure of the future. The future of humanity is determined by the degree to which truth is recognized, applied, and embodied. Societies, relationships, and individual destinies unfold according to the laws of creation. The Grail message emphasizes that truth is not merely intellectual understanding, it is active, living guidance. Decisions, actions, and recognition aligned with law lead to stability, order, and liberation. Choices divorced from truth result in disorder, confusion, and suffering. The measure of the future, therefore, is not technological advancement, social popularity, or accumulation of wealth. It is the extent to which humanity recognizes, respects, and cooperates with truth. Closing clarification. Truth stands as the unwavering standard, independent and eternal. Humanity has the choice to recognize or reject it. The path to recognition is open to all prepared through humility, sober thinking, and inner alignment. The Grail Message leaves this final insight: seek truth diligently, live in accordance with it, and allow its light to guide thought, word, and deed. In doing so, freedom, clarity, and fulfillment are realized, and the human being steps into conscious cooperation with the eternal order of creation.